Good evening and welcome. My name is Robin Lawrence, and I have the pleasure of serving as the Social Action Chair for the West Palm Beach Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta. And in partnership with the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church, we thank you for attending this evening's voter education workshop entitled, What's on Your Ballot? It is our goal to equip our community to have a better understanding of the various races and offices that are either for election or re-election this general election cycle, as well as having an understanding about the various judicial races and the various ballot referendums. We know that election day is around the corner, so we want you to have a plan to vote, to be ready, set, vote, and to also to share this information with your community. I would like to bring to the stage Ms. Barbara Chiefs, who is our partner here at Tabernacle.
Good evening. Thank you, Robin. I have the honor of being the chair of the Tabernacle Missionary Baptist Church Social Justice Ministry. We are extremely involved in voter education, voter registration, voter engagement, and have been for many years. We are also very involved with PEACE, which is our local Palm Beach organization which stands for People Engaged in Active Community Efforts. I always have to read that. I'd also like to acknowledge our assistant pastor, Reverend Kevin Jones, who's here with us this evening. For those of you who are here in the house, we are live streaming, so this is being broadcast on our YouTube station. But for those of you in the house, just a little housekeeping. There's a restroom right through that door, and there are more all the way in the back down the stairs at the south end of the building. So welcome. We're happy to have you here this evening. I will tell you something that we did as a church, which I think is important, you can take back to your own congregations. Our social justice ministry called every member of Tabernacle in the last 2 weeks to make sure they knew there was an election, make sure they had a ballot, make sure that they were ready to vote, make sure they knew about this evening. And we are intending to canvass the neighborhood on November 2nd and 5th, announcing our souls to the polls, which is going to be November the 6th, the Sunday just before the end of early voting. So we will have souls to the polls here. So if you know of anybody who's interested or in this neighborhood who needs to go to the polls, please let us know. And with that, I will turn you back to Robin.
And thank you, Ms. Barber. And again, thank you to Tabernacle for the work that you all do in our community. I have the pleasure of introducing tonight's moderator, Ms. Kenya Madison, also known as Kitty London. Kitty London is a known multimedia creator. She's the host and creator of her popular Facebook talk show entitled The People of Power. The show highlights national trailblazers, which includes entrepreneurs, community leaders, professionals, celebrities, and more. To date, she has conducted over 400 interviews. Kitty is also the media affiliate with the Children's Services Council of Palm Beach County, and she is a TV host for the series Healthy, Safe, Strong Stories. In 2019, she was nominated by Legacy Magazine as one of South Florida's most influential and prominent Black women in business and industry. And in 2020, Kitty released a rap single and video entitled Now I Can't Breathe. The music video made its debut on MSNBC and received global recognition. Kitty is employed with Comcast and has been with them for nearly 2 decades. She's a member of Comcast's Florida Region Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Council and serves as a Comcast Florida Black Employee Network lead. She holds a bachelor's degree in mass communication and journalism, and she's currently pursuing her master's degree in organizational management. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to introduce to you our moderator for the evening, Ms. Kitty London.
Thank you, Robin. I see why I'm tired now. When you read my bio, I'm like, oh, that girl do a lot. And I realized that was me. Hello, everyone. I am so happy to be here this evening. I am just honored because we are in a climate right now where we need to know everything about who's on the ballot, why they're on the ballot, right? Because I always want to know, why are you running? When I interview people, the first thing I want to know is, why are you running, and what can you do? I know that there are not a lot of people in the room, but I think we are the few and the mighty. And as we go out of this building tonight, we become ambassadors of information. So I just would challenge you to listen to all the presenters as they give us information about who's on the ballot and everything that we're going to learn today. So before we start, I want to just make sure that we give a warm introduction to our panel of experts that we have coming up here. Mac Bernard is looking around. Yes, you are one of those experts. And I want to say for our distinguished guests, I call him Mr. District 88, but Mr. Seuss for Seniors, Javante Evans is in the building this evening. And also, we have voter guides. Did everyone get something? So we all, okay, great, I just want to make sure. All right, so before we start the program, our first presenter is named Ella Gilbert. Ella, where are you? Okay, want to make sure you're here. Ella Gilbert is a West Palm Beach native. She spent 10 years as a government relations professional for the local government agencies before attending law school. She is currently the senior deputy city attorney for the city of Port St. Lucie, Florida, where she advises the city in legal issues for a variety of areas. She also serves as a co-leader of the Port St. Lucie legislative team, coordinating the state legislative lobbying efforts and other special projects for the city. Ms. Gilbert is going to come up here. I think she's going to come up here and she's going to give us a great presentation, and we're going to find out about the overview of the ballot races. So just make sure you got your pens, I hope, out, because we're going to get a lot of information this evening. Thank you. Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you, Ms. London. And I do have quite a bit of information. I am going to attempt to cover as much as possible in a short period of time. Good evening, everyone. I'm grateful to be here at home. I live here in West Palm and I commute to Port St. Lucie daily. And it's just a wonderful feeling to be here at home and to provide information on what we have in the ballot that is coming up. And so what I'm going to do tonight is I'm going to start not at the top of your ballot, but at the bottom of your ballot. And so I'm going to start with the local races, and those races in this area, which is District 7 for County Commission. I'm going to start with one race that I did not realize is a nonprofit entity, but it is a division of the state of Florida, and that is the Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation District. That particular race, believe it or not, those supervisors, and that's the title of the position, those are unpaid positions. When they are elected, they do not receive any pay whatsoever, and the purpose of the Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation District is to educate residents, land users, and businesses on ways to protect our natural resources, promote best management practices, and conserve, improve, and sustain the environment. Another thing about that particular office is that they do not levy taxes or issue bonds. So their role is basically education in nature. And when I was doing my research, one of the things I found out that could be beneficial to the average resident here is they offer something called an urban mobile irrigation lab, where they can actually help you at your home or your business determine the best way for irrigation at your home. So that's one of the things that they do. They also work with the state of Florida. They actually have a plat directory for Palm Beach County, and they do Palm Beach County aerials. And when I went through to do my research on each of the offices, what I did was I looked at the most recent agenda that each office has, as well as I tried to look at their budget. So the budget for the Palm Beach Soil and Water Conservation District for 22-23 is $562,239. So that's what those supervisors have to use to operate the agency as well as educate the community. The next local race is the Palm Beach County School Board race. And for that particular office, there was an article in the Palm Beach Post actually this morning inquiring as to who is funding the actual school board candidates and why was the amount of money that has been raised. One thing that I did encounter as I was doing my research on the school board is the budget for the Palm Beach County School District is almost $5 billion with a B, $5 billion. That is quite a bit of money, and the 7 members of the school district are responsible for managing that budget. They are responsible for setting policy. They are responsible for making appointments to various committees, determining curriculum. They have a large responsibility. So when you are considering candidates for that race, you need to make sure that they ask questions. Ask if they have the ability to manage a budget of that size. How are they willing to advocate on behalf of their district for resources and to ensure that schools are funded appropriately in their district, as well as ensuring that when disciplinary measures are met for not just students, but also employees. Ask those type of questions because those are some of their responsibilities. The next race is the Port of Palm Beach. And I am a former employee of Tri-Rail. I'm sorry, I see someone raise their hand. I have a question. Sure. The question that was asked is, I made mention of the Palm Beach Post article regarding how did the school board candidates receive their funding. And I have the actual article right here in front of me. They detail for both district races, the District 6 as well as the District 7, and they actually itemize out based on each candidate. So you could actually see that, some candidates had some business backing, others had attorney backing. It varied from candidate to candidate, and I can provide this article to you so you can see the detail because it's extremely detailed. It lays out for both races all the way down to the percentage of the donations that came from various municipalities. For instance, in the District 6, 19% of the donors were from West Palm, 13% was from Belglade, 10% from Pahokee, 10% from Wellington. And that was for Marsha Andrews as a candidate, for Showalters. Her donor pool was 17% from Wellington, 17% from West Palm, 9% from Jupiter, 5% from Palm Beach, and 5% from Royal Palm. For the candidates that will be representing this area, which is District 7, Mr. Ferguson, his donations were 41% from West Palm Beach, 12% from Riviera Beach, 8% from Palm Beach Gardens, and 4% from Boynton Beach, versus Mr. Smith's donation, 33% from West Palm Beach, 14% from Riviera Beach, 10% from Delray, and 7% from Lake Worth. And so there's a whole lot more. It was a lengthy article. I'll leave it here for anyone who would like to read it. But that's the information that you would have that details where the money is coming from. But again, I say that you also need to not just ask the candidates about the money, but ask how are they going to make decisions? How are they going to make decisions on behalf of students? How are they going to make decisions in response to parents? How are they going to make decisions in response to educators? All of those things, and also in response to the business community. And they make a wide range of decisions. I looked at a recent agenda. They approve various contracts for the school district, and they range from lawn mowing services to school construction, to instructional materials. I mean, it's a wide range of things that they actually make decisions about as far as purchasing. So we really do need to ask very specific questions as it relates to these candidates and what their actual role will be. Now, the third local race is the Port of Palm Beach. And in that race, originally I looked at it from the perspective of the port is a mode of transportation. And I looked at the fact sheet for the Port of Palm Beach, and it stated that they have processed over 14,000 rail cars per year. Over 705,000 short tons of sugar is processed through the Port of Palm Beach. 130,000 short tons of molasses. Over 121,000 short tons of liquid asphalt. 75,000 short tons of diesel fuel. So a lot of the products that we have to receive at our grocery stores, things that we need to ensure that we have adequate construction here in Palm Beach County, road construction, because you need the asphalt for that, those things come through the Port of Palm Beach. So the individuals who are on the board of the Port of Palm Beach are responsible for ensuring that that port runs efficiently. And it's not, a lot of times we think of a port as a way to go on a cruise. But this is about goods and services that are coming in, well, goods that are coming in and out of the Palm Beach County. So it's very, very, very important that you have someone that has a business mind that can ensure that we have adequate contracts, that we work well with transportation companies, and that we can ensure that these goods are moving expeditiously through the area. And also, I know that there has been an issue with the city of Riviera Beach as far as a freight line that at times will tie up the rail crossing at Blue Heron Boulevard. Those are things that we could actually advocate for our members of the Port of Palm Beach to work with the freight lines to ensure that we're not disrupting traffic being able to go back and forth for the residents of Riviera Beach. So that's the Port of Palm Beach. And those were the local races that were covered in this community. Now, the next level is the state level. And with the state level, you first have, since we've had the census, there's a process called redistricting. And because, as a result of that, all of the House seats and Senate seats were up for re-election this year. Some ran unopposed, and those positions have already been settled. But then we also have local House races as well as Senate races. And the role of the members of the House of Representatives as well as the Florida Senate, they have one job when they are in session. And the only thing that they are constitutionally mandated to complete is to actually pass the state budget. They don't have to pass another bill. They don't have to approve another law. They absolutely must approve the state budget before they recess. And so when they go up, they are up for a 60-day session. And during that time, they consider issues that are not just appropriations and budget, but they also consider policy issues. And this past year, we heard a lot of information about the quote-unquote culture war that occurred during the Florida legislative session. What I would implore residents, voters, is to have communication with your local House member as well as your local senator and advocate for what you think is important, what you believe needs to be covered during the Florida legislative session. This year, the session starts in March and it ends end of April, beginning of May. But before that, there's a process called committee weeks. Those weeks, I believe, start in December. Organizational session is in November, and that's when the leadership of the Florida House and the Florida Senate is selected. So the House Speaker as well as the Florida Senate President are selected at the organizational session in November. They make the determination of what bills will advance. They decide when a member files a bill, they decide how many committees of reference that bill receives. So if a member files a bill and they receive 5 committees of reference, more than likely that bill is not going to advance. It's not going to actually finish through the session. Additionally, after they have the organizational session, they go through committee weeks in which they have presentations from various state agencies about the state budget. They then ask those agency heads about why certain things are in the budget, try to get some other things in that particular budget for those agencies. And that's when you see what the priority will be for the Florida legislative session, honestly. You'll know during committee weeks what things are going to move forward. After committee weeks, session starts in March, and that is the fastest 60 days you will ever see. It is extremely fast-paced, and the last 2 weeks of session are mind-blowing. Deals are made, amendments filed on bills, things that maybe didn't move fast enough during the process. In the last 2 weeks, you get a surprise many times, and something that may not have been heard in committees earlier on appear on a committee, and it's moving. And if the leadership in the House and the Senate says that this has to pass, more than likely it passes. It goes to the governor for either signature or veto, and we have whatever law is passed. Additionally, the governor has the ability to line item veto the budget. He goes line by line and determines what items stay and what items are removed. So if your member of the House or the Senate has advocated fiercely for their item, got it into the budget, it still has to survive the governor's veto pen. So those are the House and Senate races. And for those, I will say this: make time to talk to your members of the Florida House and Senate. They are local people. They are, you know, you run into them at the grocery store, maybe at church. Different organizations have different events, and you see them. Talk to them. I mean, a lot of times I think we take the time to vote, but we are not holding people accountable. And one of the ways you hold them accountable is having the conversations with them and absolutely having conversations with their staff. So one of the things that I've learned in my career is I get to know the staff members very, very well, because they're the ones that read the bills. They talk with the lobbyists that are coming through the offices in Tallahassee as well as locally, and they provide information to the members. If you can have a good conversation with and build a good relationship with members of staff, then you definitely have a better opportunity to advance what you're advocating. And it doesn't have to be anything large. It can be something small. but we are we are their constituents. They are accountable to us. It's our job to make sure that the things that we want, they are attempting to advance. The things that we don't want, they're trying to stop. And it means picking up the telephone and calling their offices. It's not rocket science. It's not hard at all. Pick up the phone, call the aide, tell them, hey, can you just give a message to Rep. Edmonds? Can you give a message to Senator Powell? I believe X, Y, and Z. That quick. And then the next step could be sending an email. So then after that, we have state races, statewide races. And with that, that's the Florida cabinet that is up on the ballot. And the Florida budget that was passed last year was just under $110 billion. The state of Florida had a $21.8 billion budget surplus. And so the governor is responsible for executing and ensuring that the state agencies are performing what needs to happen based on the state budget. But what I did find when I researched is that in writing it says that the state of Florida has a decentralized governor. However, in practice, I see things a little bit differently. But because when we amended the Florida Constitution, we had various cabinet members get different responsibilities, and so not all of the responsibilities fall under the governor. And so that's why we have the chief financial officer, we have the attorney general, and we have the secretary of agriculture and community consumer affairs, consumer services. One thing that I did see when I researched, I said, well, let me see how frequently the Florida cabinet meets. The calendar for the 2022 cabinet and clemency meeting schedule, the cabinet met in March, in August, and December. The clemency board meets in March and December only. Now, with the Florida Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services, they are responsible for ensuring the safety and wholesomeness of food and other consumer products, protecting consumers from unfair and deceptive business practices, and providing consumer information, assisting Florida farmers and agricultural industries with the production and promotion of agricultural products, and conserving and protecting the state's agricultural and natural resources by reducing wildfires, promoting environmentally safe agricultural practices, and managing public lands. Also, a lot of times, one thing that we can relate to with the Department of Consumer and Agriculture and Consumer Affairs is we see the sticker at the gas pump. So that's one of the responsibilities of that particular agency. Now, the Chief Financial Officer is responsible for the Department of Financial Services, and so that entails the state's accounting and auditing function, managing the state treasury, managing the deferred comp program for state employees, investigating fraud, including insurance fraud, public assistance fraud, false claims against the state, regulating cemeteries and funeral homes. And that you wouldn't think that would fall under the chief financial officer, but it does. Importantly, licensing and oversight of insurance, and that is going to be very, very, very important, especially in light of the most recent natural disaster that we had in many parts of Florida, not just Southwest Florida, but Southwest Florida, the storm exited through Daytona. Some parts of Central Florida have been impacted. So the insurance regulation with the chief financial officer, that will be something that you should consider as far as when you are making the decision on who you're going to vote for. Also, the chief financial officer is responsible for workers' comp claims, assisting consumers in the resolution of issues pertaining to insurance and funeral services, And another one that many of us don't know about, collecting and returning unclaimed property. There is a website, I believe it's Florida Treasure Hunt, that you can go to, put in your name to determine if you have unclaimed assets here in Florida. If not, they will revert back to the state. So that's something that is the responsibility, it falls on the purview of the chief financial officer. And then the attorney general is the third cabinet member. The attorney general, they are the chief legal officer. They're responsible for, again, protecting Florida consumers from various types of fraud and enforcing the state's antitrust laws. Another important responsibility of the attorney general is protecting the constituents in cases of Medicaid fraud. That was something new that I was not aware of. And defending the state in civil litigation cases, representing the people of Florida when criminals appeal their convictions in state and federal courts. And the governor is, again, when I read that it said that our state is decentralized, the governor of the state of Florida has quite a bit of authority. The governor appoints members of the Board of Trustees for all state universities. The governor appoints the education officer with the Department of Education, judicial nominating committee, various judges when there's vacancies and it's not in time for an election. So a lot of appointments go through the governor. The governor recently, in this past few sessions, has set the pace of what will be heard in the state legislature, and that was not as common as the way it is occurring now. What things he said were the priority were the bills that actually passed. So it's important. The race for the governor, as well as all of the other members of the Florida cabinet, they are vital. Additionally, the governor has the ability to remove, suspend from office any state or county elected official, any. He has the power to fill vacancies in office by appointment, and he has absolutely exercised that power. So we just need to take these things in consideration when we are looking to select whomever is going to be our governor and lieutenant governor, and they here in Florida run as a team. So when you see your ballot, you see governor and lieutenant governor as one. So when you mark the box, you're marking for both the governor and the lieutenant governor. And then the federal races. We have both we have one Senate seat that is up, and we also, wherever you live, you will have a member of Congress, the United States House of Representatives. And with the Senate, the senator is responsible for, according to the United States Constitution, they have the unique responsibilities of conducting impeachment trials and providing advice and consent to confirm treaties and executive and judicial nominations. So they are responsible for confirming Supreme Court nominees. We saw that process in place. Additionally, they are the more deliberative of the two bodies. They take their time. They don't generally go through the bill-making process as quickly as the United States House of Representatives does. Additionally, I would like to point out that all of these offices that I named, they have constituent services. There is staff at every single level. So for instance, if you are having issues with Medicare or Social Security, that is a federal issue. You contact your U.S. Senator or your U.S. Congressperson. If you are having issues with unemployment compensation, you contact your state representative and your state senator. I am not sure if many of us reach out to our school board representatives, but you can do that as well. You can reach out to the members of the Port of Palm Beach, to the Soil and Water Conservation District. That's our job, is to make sure that they know exactly what we want and to accomplish it. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Anyone have any questions? Any record of what they've done, rather than say what they're going to do, like re-electing?
Okay, so for the people who are already in office and they're seeking re-election, you look at how they voted. Now, for those who are running for election that have never been elected before, the best way to evaluate them is they go by door to door, trying to solicit, asking you to place yard signs in. Have the conversations with them. Use your common sense of, okay, well, tell me this. How do you manage a budget? How do you determine what things are important? Tell me, for the role that you are trying to be elected for, not just what is their script, but give me specifics on what you plan on doing in your office, whatever office that is they're seeking for election. A lot of them have a script. They talk about economic development, they talk about education. They all have that script, but you need to ask them some very specific questions. How do you manage a budget in your business? You're a business owner. How do you manage a budget in your business? That's a way to find out how they would handle finances. Does that answer your question? Okay. Oh, okay. You have another question, sir?
Testing.
Okay, so the question was, there's going to be some expansion with the Port of Palm Beach. Is there any information on the expansion? What I did when I was doing my research is I went to the Port of Palm Beach website. They have a strategic plan. They also have a port plan that they are in the process of having it updated, because the last time it was updated was 2017, and that was effective through 2021, 2022. So I looked at their most recent agenda for the Port of Palm Beach, and they receive updates at every single meeting on the status of whatever company is working on the port plan for exactly what's going to be expanded. The last meeting I saw, they had information on there about a purchase of land in Riviera Beach. All of that was on the agenda, and I was able to get it right off the internet. I didn't have to call the office or anything. I just went straight to the Port of Palm Beach and looked at the agendas, and that's how I found the information.
To add to Ms. Gilbert's response, the Port of Palm Beach, they are hosting public meetings similar to this to allow citizens, the constituents, to come in and review the draft of the master plan and the other strategic plans that they are working on. So we can get together and get those dates for you and let you know when the next public meeting is.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was great. And I want to add to the gentleman's comment in regards to the accountability and kind of keeping our constituents, elected officials, I wouldn't say in check, but I have a show, and I wanted to have what I call it a midterm check-in, if that makes sense. If you're serving a 4-year term, around 2 years you've been there, you kind of got your feet wet, you know, we should be able to come back to you as voters to say, what's going on? How are you doing? What's going on with you? And I think we have that power. We don't use that power enough. And just like we have elected officials sitting here today, usually they'll talk to you. We just have to ask what's going on and, again, keep them accountable. So I would just say local media definitely needs to do a better job with keeping the voters, and also we need to do a better job with asking what we want and seeing if it gets done. If it doesn't get done, like Ella said, some things happen that's out of their control, right? Because if the governor says no, we look at our local officials like you haven't done anything, but we didn't know it got denied. And I think they need to come back from Tallahassee and say, I fought a good fight, but this is what happened. So this way we know what's going on in the community. So I just wanted to add that. The next presenter is very, very important. I didn't realize until I got a lot of lawyer friends how important the judicial race was. And I always would think about the president's race and the big races. And they said, girl, do you know if you ever appear in front of a judge, you want to know who you voted in? Because you never know if your family member is going to be in front of that judge, if you're ever going to be in front of that judge. You want to make sure that judge is fair. You want to make sure that judge knows laws. So I want to thank Davika for coming in and giving us this information. So Davika Thompson is she is seasoned. She doesn't look seasoned, but she's seasoned. Communications executive with more than 20 years of experience. She has created more than 30 successful outreach programs and served as a lead campaign consultant on local, state, and judicial campaigns, and delivered award-winning creative campaigns. Today, Davika will guide us on a roadmap to the 2022 judicial races. And before Davika, come on up. Before I got a 911 text. I want to make sure that everyone knows this is a nonpartisan event. However, I want to let people know that we have 3 Black women that are running in the statewide race of the general election ballot. This is historical. It's for the U.S. Senate, the Attorney General, and the Commissioner of Agriculture. So that is to be noted. Thank you. Welcome, Davika Thompson.
Good evening. Thank you all for coming out. Being here, learning more, doing your due diligence about judicial races and races overall really helps us with our voter outreach. I've had the great fortune to work on several judicial campaigns, as Ms. Linden stated, and one of the caveats that we always find with judicial races is that folks just aren't informed. Judges aren't important for whatever reason. One of the candidates with whom I worked would always say that a judge is who you'll run into on your worst day or your best day. So it's up to us to do our due diligence, do our research with regard to the judges on the ballot, understanding the process with regard to becoming a judge, and making sure that we're voting in judges who represent us across the board. So why vote for judges? One, they're public servants. We pay their taxes. They're arbiters of our Constitution. They play a vital role in our democracy, our economy, and our daily lives. Again, we've seen in the press, moreover lately, information about various verdicts or situations that have come out of courts that have not benefited a particular community or particular people. But we have to look at the judges that we've had in these roles who've made these decisions. Judges who may have implicit biases or other experiences that don't allow them to fully understand the constituents that they serve. We want to work to ensure a fair and balanced judiciary. Again, looking at the records of these persons that we are looking to have in these seats, making sure that they have a diverse background with regard to how they plan to serve in the capacity of being a judge. The road to judgeship. There are several measures by which one can become judge. We have elections, which just with our primary, we had 2 judicial races on that campaign, on that ballot. We also have merit appointment by the governor, which Ms. Gilbert touched on briefly. There's a hybrid model. Once the governor appoints a judge, then you have the merit retention vote, which is on the ballot, which is what we'll be looking at today. So just to give a quick overview before I start to touch on the races on the ballot about merit appointment. It's a thorough process where candidates are sent to the Judicial Nominating Commission, and they are thoroughly vetted, and then several of those candidates are presented to our governor to make a selection for nomination to become a judge. It's a nonpartisan panel of 9 members that screens the candidates, and then they send 3 to 6 candidates to the governor. Once the governor selects the candidate to become judge, and I think we just had our most recent Florida Supreme Court Justice, Judge Renatha Francis, who was appointed by Governor DeSantis a couple of months ago. We go through the process of deciding whether that judge should remain in office, which is where we are today with our ballot and the Supreme Court justices, as well as the 4 DCA judges that appear on your ballots today. They've already been appointed. Some of them have been in their seats for up to 6 years, and now we're looking to vote whether they should retain those seats. On our ballot, the Florida Supreme Court has 5 justices. So there are a total of 7 justices, including the Chief Justice, that sit on the Supreme Court, which is the highest court of our state. We have 5 justices on the ballot. If you go to the next slide. Next slide. I've gone through and pulled out the merit retention poll that's done by the Florida Bar. So there are a few ways to go in and, again, research who these candidates are. Unfortunately, it's not made easy for us. We do have to do a bit of research. So with the Supreme Court justices, you have the website, the floridasupremecourt.org website, where you're able to go in and review decisions that they've made. And based on your party affiliation or where you lean, you'll be able to understand how those decisions impact you and how you'd like to vote with regard to that particular justice. There's also a Florida Bar merit retention poll, which is sent out to about 80,000 practicing attorneys across the state of Florida. The unfortunate part about the poll is that there's only about a 10% response from the attorneys, so when you're looking at how you should vote based on the evaluation, you have to understand that only about 6,000 or so attorneys responded to this merit retention poll. The Florida Bar merit retention poll information can be found on floridabar.org. And again, it lists all 5 justices for the Supreme Court. With the justices, you want to look at the decisions that they've made. And then moving to the 4th District Court of Appeals, which is right around the corner here, the building's right around the corner, there are 12 judges that sit on the 4th District Court of Appeals. Of those 12 judges, there are 7 on our ballot. With the District Court of Appeals, and their website is 4dca.org, you are able to go in and review opinions that they have made based on appeals being filed. For DCA.org. tabernacle.org. The handout that was provided to you by the League of Women Voters also lists the candidates, the judicial candidates that will appear on your ballots. Will show you by whom they were appointed, by which governors they were appointed, if that is an important factor for you. It also gives brief biographies based on the candidates. But again, what I implore you to do, and it does take some time, as I've said, and you just have to kind of sit down and carve out that time to do the research, to carry these messages back to your communities, because you're here and you're able to let these folks know how these justices have voted, understanding that whoever is retained will be on the bench for another 6 years. And if you are conservative leaning, then what we currently have on the Florida Supreme Court benefits you. But if you are more left-leaning, more liberal, then look at how that might impact your vote. I will say that if a justice, whether it's a Florida Supreme Court justice or a DCA judge, is not retained, then our governor, whoever that is that's elected on November 8th, will have the capability of appointing new justices. So if it's Governor DeSantis who retains his office, then he will again be appointing some of those judges, new judges, that you'll see on the bench if anyone is not retained. Are there any questions? My part was very light. I think that Ms. Gilbert had a difficult part with the information that she covered. Yes, ma'am. FloridaSupremeCourt.org, spelled out. The website for the 4th DCA circuit is 4dca.org. And that 4th DCA, the 4th District Court of Appeals, covers appeals in Palm Beach County, Martin County, St. Lucie County, and Okeechobee counties. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Right. He won't reappoint that judge. It will start the process again with the Judicial Nominating Commission. So 6 to 9 candidates will be presented to the local Judicial Nominating Commission. It will be the same process. They will send our governor 3 names or so names, and then he'll pick from those names. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for being here again. If there are any questions, I'll be in the back.
Thank you, Davika. As I was looking through this literature, I was very impressed by how well it was put together, how informative this is. And I was going to say, shout out to the League of Women Voters. But I actually can give a shout out because we have someone here that represents them. Up next, we are going to discuss statewide referendums. I know that usually people think that it's just voting on the ballot for a person, but there are also other things that we need to know on the ballot. Marsha Herman is a member of the League of Women Voters of Palm Beach County. She is the chair of the Speakers Bureaus. The League works to encourage the informed and active participation of citizens in government and to influence public policy through citizen education and advocacy. Today, she will help us to understand the 3 state constitution proposals that every Florida voter can decide. Please welcome Marsha Herman.
Thank you very much for inviting me here tonight. I'm looking forward to sharing some information about the three ballot amendments. And I believe there's a PowerPoint. I don't know if they're going to put that up, but we can probably dispense with most of that. And if you just want to go to Amendment 1, that would be fine. So it'll be several slides in. So there are three amendments. These were all proposed by the state legislature. And our voters get to vote either yes or no on each of them. In order for any of them to pass, they would have to pass with more than 60% of the votes cast. So it's not just a simple majority of 50 plus 1. It has to be over 60% of the voters who would say yes in order for it to pass. So the first one is about, let me just get to my page here. The first one was proposed by the Florida legislature, and it is a limit on increased property assessment for flood improvements. So what they're stating here is that people who live in flood-prone areas here in Florida who are homeowners, if they choose to do some sort of flood abatement, like waterproofing or raise their air conditioner or heating units up off the ground so they won't get flooded and ruined, anything that they might do would incur some costs to them, and then those costs might be passed on to the assessment of their taxes on their house. So their house may increase in value, and then their taxes may go up. And that's true of any kind of improvement that you would do on your home. But this is specific to flood abatement. So the legislature has said, we think that this is important, that people do things to protect their property so that they don't incur higher insurance costs and all of that. And they are proposing that this be passed in the Constitution. So I will just tell you that the League is not advocating for this. We're taking no position on that. This is really up to each of the voters themselves. But I will just explain a little bit more about it so that the voters can understand. And there was mention about our voter guide, which if you don't actually have a physical copy of that, you can access it online. It is vote411.org. And all of the information that I'm covering this evening is it printed in that or available on that online product as well. So a yes vote would authorize the Florida legislature to pass laws that would exempt flood resistance improvements from contributing to increases in property assessments. This means that property owners wouldn't pay higher taxes because of those improvements. It exempts flood-resistant improvements such as elevating structures, filling basements, and waterproofing, as well as improvements to allow for stormwater runoff, waterproofing basements, installing check valve capable of preventing water backup, and elevating furnaces, heaters, and electrical panels. If it is voted yes, then that would take effect January of 2023. A no vote would maintain the status quo, which means that if any homeowner did make improvements, they would be subjected to a higher assessment for their taxes. Again, we are taking no position on this particular issue. It's really up to the voters and to the homeowners to decide if that's something that they want to add to the Constitution. The Second Amendment proposal is related to the Constitution Revision Commission. So this Constitution Revision Commission meets every 20 years. When our Constitution was revised in the 1960s, there was a mechanism put in place that every 20 years they would create this commission, and it's a different group of people every time. Every 20 years, it's 37 people that are appointed by the governor and by the state legislature and by the Supreme Court of Florida. So they get 37 people together, they meet for a year, they review the Constitution, and they make proposed changes to it. And then all of those proposed changes come to the voters in Florida, and we vote yes or no on each of those amendments. Now, the last time we did this kind of large scale was back in 2018, and if you remember, there were a number of ballot proposals at that time. And they were confusing sometimes because they put 2 or 3 different issues together. One of the things that they talked about was the greyhound dog racing, if you remember that. They abolished that. Another one had to do with what we call our returning citizens, people who have been convicted of felonies, have served their time, and it was a citizen-led initiative to allow those convicted felons to get their voting rights back. So over 60% of Florida voters said yes on that particular issue. Yes, those people should get their voting rights back. But then what happened was the legislature stepped in, sort of put up some roadblocks and made it more difficult again. And the league and other organizations then fought against that in courts, and they said, all right, we've already heard the will of the Florida people, which is give them their rights back. So that's part of what the league and other organizations like the league do, is keep working so that all of our eligible voters get that opportunity to vote. So in this case, the league is opposed to abolishing this commission. We do feel that it's important that the Constitution is looked at every 20 years, and whatever revisions need to happen should happen at that point. So we don't want to stop that process. The other ways that ballots can get on the, or amendments can get on the ballot is through citizen-led initiatives, which is what that returning citizens was. There's also things like gun control, the dog racing. All of those things came from citizen-led initiatives, and those are important, and we want those to continue as well. If it comes down to just the state legislature being able to make these proposals in the future, it's going to cut down on the ability for Florida voters to make these choices for themselves. So I will just tell you that the league is opposed to abolishing this commission. The third amendment has to do with the homestead exemption. So when we have residents here in Florida who own a home, some sort of property, they already receive a $50,000 exemption through the Homestead Act on whatever the price of their house is. That, it takes that $50,000 right off the price and then reduces their taxes. This is a new proposal, again, by the Florida legislature, to say that certain employees, they want to give them an additional $50,000 exemption. So let me just tell you who that would be affected. It says this amendment would authorize the state legislature to create a new $50,000 homestead exemption for certain public service employees, including classroom teachers, law enforcement officers, correctional officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, child welfare services professionals, active duty members of the United States Armed Forces, and members of the Florida National Guard. The exemption means that property owners in these professions can subtract $50,000 from the assessed value of their property, which will reduce their local property tax bills. The exemption would be in addition to the standard $50,000 homestead exemption Floridians already receive on their primary residence. So again, in order for that to pass, it would have to pass with 60% of the voters saying yes, they would want to give this exemption to those, that subcategory of employees. I will just tell you again that the league is opposed to this one as well. It's not that we don't feel that these people deserve some sort of tax break, but the league specifically does not think that tax issues belong in the state constitution. Those should be laws, not necessarily part of the Constitution. So that's their rationale for being opposed to it. There's a question. Go ahead and I'll just repeat it. Just those, right, just those specific categories of public employees. Right. So he's asking why is it just specific to those categories that I listed? I don't know that I have the answer to that. I'm sorry. I just know that the state legislature proposed that. I'm going to make an assumption, which maybe I shouldn't, that maybe they felt that those particular people needed some tax relief, given maybe their income levels. Okay? So I don't have an answer specifically why they proposed it for just those categories. Another question? That is correct. Sure. Right. I know that in the past, these ideas like this were on the ballot in 2018, and they were for like widows of service members. So it's not without precedent that they have tried to carve out these exemptions for certain categories. Why they chose the public employees, I don't know that, though. I'm sorry. I know. Okay. All right. So thank you for your attention. I appreciate that very much. I do want to say just one more thing. Again, the league is nonpartisan, so I'm not going to advocate for any particular elected official. But I do want just people to know that if you hadn't already heard, there will be a public debate on TV tomorrow night from 7 to 8 p.m. I'm sorry, I don't know which channel that's on, but that will be for Marco Rubio and Val Demings. That will be a debate between the two people who are running for state senator, or for the Senate. And then next Monday, a week from tonight, on the 24th, there will be a debate between Ron DeSantis and Charlie Crist, and that's also from 7 to 8. So be aware that there are other opportunities to hear the candidates debate directly for those two offices. Thank you for your time.
These are the people who keep us safe.
Thank you, Marsha. I told her hair was so pretty. It's glittering. The next gentleman who's going to grace the stage is a political figure, and I promise you, you can believe everything that he says. He's not on the ballot, okay? He's not on the ballot. We often hear in Palm Beach County in regards to the housing crisis, and we like, what is the housing crisis besides people that cannot afford to pay their rent? So hopefully we have some relief coming soon. Our next speaker, Mac Bernard, who is also the commissioner, Mac Bernard, was elected in 2016 to the Palm Beach County Commission District 7. He is a strong advocate for more affordable and sustainable housing. Today, Commissioner Bernard will help us understand the housing needs in our community and what a yes and a no vote means for the ballot initiative on the $200 million housing bond. And before he comes and speaks to us, we have a housing video, so if you can look to the screens, and we will have just a little entertainment. Thank you.
The people who keep us safe and provide so many of the things that make Palm Beach County such a great place to live. But homes and apartments are too expensive, even for high-skilled workers like nurses, teachers, and first responders. Runaway housing prices are forcing these essential people out, putting our safety and quality of life at risk. So what can we do to help fix it? This November, vote for the housing bond. It will help build 20,000 homes for our hardworking, essential middle-class workforce. A housing bond paired with a smart housing plan that makes homes more affordable for workers. The plan lowers construction costs by speeding up permitting, allowing more density in the right places, and uses private sector investment while partnering with local builders. It builds capacity for nonprofit developers and partners with neighborhood groups, local governments, and lenders to revitalize disadvantaged communities through housing rehab, new construction, and community redevelopment. It stops Wall Street investors from driving up Palm Beach County housing prices and squeezing out those who serve us and keep us safe. It's a real plan that makes housing more affordable for working and middle-class families right away. And it strengthens our economy, creates good high-paying jobs, and encourages home ownership opportunities. So Palm Beach County is for everyone. Learn more about housing for Palm Beach County workers at hometownhousingtrust.com.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mac Bernard, and I am the County Commissioner for District 7. In 2016, I ran for County Commission, and in 2019, I filed, I don't know, since I'm not in the legislature, you don't file a bill, but I had proposed for the county for us to do a $150 million housing bond. That was in 2019. And at that time, the allocation of the $150 million was $50 million for homeless housing, $50 million for affordable housing, and $50 million for workforce housing. That was in 2019. And, something happened in 2020. COVID hit. And so there was a discussion on the county commission regarding the housing bond at that time, and then also whether we would also pursue an environmental bond. And so the commission decided to put on the shelf both the housing bond that I had proposed and also the environmental bond. Now, what I can tell you, when I was running for re-election and peace, there was a meeting that they were with me. They interviewed me during my re-election, and they asked me, Commissioner Bernard, if you're re-elected, will you pursue the housing bond that you had proposed? And your great Reverend Kisner, he proposed that to me. And he was like, since you won't have any more elections, after 2020, will you go back and bring back the housing bond? And so I don't have another election, and I've been working on the housing bond ever since I've been reelected. So what we did in 2021, if you're doing a housing bond, you need to figure out exactly what are the housing needs of Palm Beach County. A housing needs assessment was conducted by FIU, and in the assessment it revealed that we're short of building 20,000 workforce housing in Palm Beach County. How did we get to that point short of 20,000 units? And so part of it is part of the coming out of the recession in 2008. What happened was we stopped building workforce housing for regular everyday people in the county, and it was from 2010 through 2019, there was a shortage of 2,000 units per year. And so that's how we got this 20,000 unit shortage. Now, in terms of other units, they're short on affordable, they're short on workforce. There's a shortage throughout the whole county on housing. And so there's a group of folks that got together. It's called the Housing Leadership Council. And the Housing Leadership Council met every month on a Wednesday to go over every part of the plan that was going to be created. So they created a housing plan. It's called the Housing for All Plan for Palm Beach County. But of course, during that time, prices in Palm Beach County has gone up by 20 to 25%. Rents have gone up where if you're renting a unit, if your rent was $1,200, your renewal went up to probably $1,800, and then if it's renewed again, $2,400 to $3,000. And there are reasons for that. There is a lack of supply of housing in Palm Beach County. So whenever you're trying to discuss housing, how do you address it? You could put funding toward housing. You can try to do local regulation to see if you can address the housing situation, and also whether or not you can do rent stabilization to allow you to control the rent prices. Now, in regards to rent stabilization, the state of Florida, they pretty much say that the county cannot do any of that. So what we did was we did some things, but it will not help what people are going through right now. So the problem that we have, there's a shortage of housing in Palm Beach County. And so the Housing Leadership Council, through meetings for over 2 years, came up with a plan, and there are 4 parts to the plan. The first part is a funding mechanism. The second part is rehabilitation and renovation of existing homes. And the third part is governmental reforms, local land use that could be used to reform houses. And then there's also a racial equity. Now, what you have on the ballot this November is the funding piece of the housing plan. But the plan, it's an overall holistic plan to address housing in Palm Beach County. So on the ballot, it's a $200 million bond. Now, what I can tell you, if you look at the wording on the ballot, it is confusing. I'm a lawyer, and lawyers wrote, they wrote it, and it was very confusing before, and we tried to clean it up, and it looks even worse. But what I can tell you, when we were voting to put it on the ballot, there are 2 ways that you can do a bond. You can do something that is called a revenue bond, or you can do a GO bond, which is a general government obligations. So the revenue bond, which we had proposed to do a $200 million bond, it would be based on the revenues of Palm Beach County. And so that means that if you do a revenue bond, only county taxpayers are funding it. So there's an unfairness to that. And so I did propose it because if you do the revenue bond, the commissioners can vote for it, and it doesn't have to go to the voters. And when I asked the commissioners if they would consider, not one person raised their hands to support the revenue bond. But the commissioners wanted to have more discussion regarding the GO bond, which means that it's based on the general obligations, which is part of your ad valorem tax, where everyone in Palm Beach County who owns property would pay for it. But the voters, people who are here, would get to decide whether or not we attempt to address this need for Palm Beach County. Now, many people, when they're running for office, like me, when I'm running for office, I will say, vote for me because I want to address the housing needs for Palm Beach County. But that's just people running, and they're telling you to vote for them because they're going to try to do something. This is something that is on the ballot that is real for our residents in Palm Beach County. So this is doing something that is difficult. It was very difficult to have discussions between the Board of County Commissioners, because remember, we have 7 of us, and they represent different areas. And so when you're trying to propose a bond like this, where it addresses housing. Housing is complicated, where you have to give and take, and so you're not going to get everything. So just to get on the ballot, we have 7 of us. It was passed by 4 votes. And what I can tell you, when we were trying to, even to try to fix the language, if we had another meeting, it wouldn't pass. So we took a break, and Ms. Virginia Baker and the county attorney, other attorneys got involved, and we took like a 15-minute break. And they went into the room, and just no one was happy about the final product, but it was a little bit better. But if we had to come back, it wouldn't pass. So we took a 15-minute break. We knew we had 4 votes, and that was it. So that's how it's a little bit muddy, but that's what we did. And so to address the funding, the housing plan really does 3 things. First, we want to build 20,000 new units in Palm Beach County. And that's new units because we believe that it's important to create capacity in Palm Beach County. If you don't have new units and you say, hey, let's do rent civilization, but if you don't have units, then what the landlord will do, or they will not renew your lease, and they'll try to find someone else to move and pay that amount. So that's the first thing. The goal is to build 20,000 units, new. The second part of it is to make sure that 100% of those dollars are allocated for both workforce and affordable housing. Now, I can tell you I've gotten different questions regarding, Commissioner Bernard, why didn't you make a certain percentage for workforce? Why didn't you make a certain percentage for affordable? This is a 20-year bond that the market conditions will change. And so we believe that it was better to leave it open, so in that way we can build both affordable and workforce. So the affordable developers are not happy. The workforce folks are not happy because some people want more of this, more of that, but we're leaving it open so in that way the market condition will dictate what is built for our residents in Palm Beach County. Now, the next question you're going to ask is, Commissioner Bernard, where are we going to put these units? And so we believe that it is really important for us to build these new units along the corridor of Federal Highway from Delray all the way to West Palm Beach, and from Congress, from Delray all the way to West Palm Beach, Military Trail. So we want to use the infrastructure funds that was passed by Congress, so in that way we can renovate these areas, and where there are opportunities, there are broken down, dilapidated shopping plazas that we can reuse, because we want to provide also transportation in those areas. So the goal is to put those units along those corridors. And so now the question you're going to ask is, what about the existing homes that we do have in Palm Beach County? So as part of the housing plan, the goal is, I told you that there are 4 parts. There's a renovation and rehabilitation. And so what we want to do is rehab and renovate our existing neighborhoods in Palm Beach County. So we figure that if we have the funding to create new units, then the funds that we receive now, they have all these acronyms: CDBG, ESG, home, sale, ship. So what we will be able to do is use those funds to renovate and rehabilitate existing homes in communities. For instance, in this area, you've got the Northern Rise, the Rise neighborhood in Delray, the Northwest and Southwest neighborhood in Boynton Beach, Ocean Breeze East and West. And so Belle Glade, Pahokee, and South Bay, what can we do to renovate and rehab those existing homes with those funds that we already have. So we would have more funds to renovate and rehab existing homes. And then another component of it is to make sure that we have first-time home buyers assistance. Now, the county, we allocate about $5 million a year that we just allocate for housing. What we want to be able to do is use those funds so we can provide more first-time home buyers assistance with these new units that we're going to be creating for our residents. And then the next question, so I told the 20,000 units, workforce and affordable housing. The definition of workforce is that you make more than 60% of the area median income, and it goes all the way up to 140%. So that means that that's on average, let's say you make about $54,000 and all the way up to $128,000. So what you're going to try to do is on the lower end, which on the workforce side, I would say probably most of our teachers would fall in the lower end of the workforce category. So when someone tells me, hey, Commissioner Bernard, why didn't you create a certain amount for this category? We're just trying to be as flexible as possible to create the units. So affordable means that you're doing that below the 60% of the area median income. And so affordable is built a little bit different. And so when you're doing affordable housing development, typically you're working with, let's say with the West Palm Beach Housing Authority. If they have a development, they may try to get tax credits for that development. And then so what you're trying to do is combine those funds to be able to get the units built. So let's say if the West Palm Beach Housing Authority, if they were doing a development that costs $30 million, if you can get tax credit, which you can use as equity to build that development, let's say you get 20 million of equity. And if you get 20 million of equity, and that's called tax credits, then you have to go and try to get a first mortgage loan. By getting a first mortgage loan, because the rent is capped, it's based on the HUD guideline that says exactly how much you can rent that unit for, then you can only get a loan for so much. So let's estimate that maybe you get a loan for $8 million. So the goal would be, how can we use that? Now you probably have a $2 million shortage that you need to fill the gap. Now, if you can get $20 million of equity to build an affordable, let's say senior affordable development, would you want to lose that $20 million in equity for spending $2 million to get the deal done? So that's kind of like what we're trying to do, is provide gap financing so in that way we can get these developments done. And then the last question you're going to ask, Commissioner Bernard, how much will it cost me as a resident? For the residents in Palm Beach County, on average, it costs about 36 cents a month, which average to $4.32 per every $100,000 of assessment. So most residents in Palm Beach County, if most residents in the county, the average assessed value is about $300,000. So that would be about $14 a year. Now, you know, it is a charge to our residents, but what we're trying to do is we have a crisis on our hands. And the way we've set it up is it's more of a revolving fund. So in that way, you know, as it would be used as a loan to build the units, and then if it's a new construction ownership, once they borrow the funds, they sell the unit at affordable or workforce rate, then they pay us back, and then we get to loan it back, so now we can create units in Palm Beach County. So this is not a giveaway. This is to make sure that we get the units done. And Miami-Dade, they have their own dedicated funding source to address affordable housing. This is kind of like our attempt in Palm Beach County to have our own dedicated funding source, so in that way we can address affordable and workforce housing in Palm Beach County. Now, I think I'm almost too long now. Kitty, are you looking at me? So, but just want to say a couple of things. Now, you probably have heard that the county is not doing any of the advocacy and outreach for the housing bond. The legislature, they passed the bill during this past session that says that county government on any ballot initiative, they're not allowed to do any advocacy, any outreach, spend any money to do any of the work. So it's left other folks to try to step in, which is folks from the Housing Leadership Council have helped us to do some of the outreach, and so we're doing a lot of the outreach. And so we do have a website, which is www.hometownhousingtrust.com. You can go on the website, and it is a simple majority, so it's 50+1. And so we'd love to take any questions. So Miami-Dade is the only one because what they do is when they sell, when you sell a property, you have to pay like it's an extra penny on your dock stamp. So that's the fund that they use to address affordable housing. That's the only county in the state that's allowed to do that. The question, I believe, is the question of whether we should go the route of a linkage fee. That's really a discussion that we haven't had that discussion at the county level yet. And so I believe that as we're having discussions, because this is one tool in the toolbox. And so the Housing Leadership Council, when they were creating the housing plan, they discussed the linkage fee. And the Palm Beach Pros raised the whether or not we should go with the route of the linkage fee. But however, the commission, we have not had a discussion regarding going that route, but what I can assure you is that we will use every tool in the toolbox, and that will be something that will come up, at a later date, but we have not had it yet. It's so linkage fee is when you're I think that's what the person was asking a question regarding. So that would be so if you're building a commercial development, the linkage fee would be a fee that would be used that would go straight to affordable housing. And that's kind of like, we have not had that discussion yet. But what we're trying to do is, housing is very complicated, and so you're trying to use every tool in the toolbox to make the units, to get the units built. And the reason why we did this amount is because we have such a problem in terms of housing. We figured we want to go big and to try to build them as soon as possible, so in that way we can relieve some of our residents. Yes.
Hi, I have a question. So, the bond is for 20,000 new units,
Mm-hmm.
and then is the rehabilitation, the renovations, is that above the 20,000?
So the bond is new units completely. The renovation, rehabilitation, on average, the county receives anywhere from $15 to $20 million a year. And so what we want to do is use those funds to strategically rehab and renovate our existing homes in the county. So we've had discussion with RISE. What can we do to help Mr. Glover out in terms of how can we renovate that area? But because in that area, you're not going to be able to create new units, but as part of that plan, how we're going to rehab those neighborhoods. Yes. So there are different levels of affordable. So when you're doing an affordable housing, 60% of the area median income, some residents will qualify for that. But however, you're going to have a lot of residents that are not going to qualify. And that's really working with the housing authorities, because the housing authorities, they deal more with that extremely low income. That's like you're making $20,000 a year. And so that's our work with the housing authority. So in that way, what we would do is we would incentivize in that development to create the extremely low income housing in those developments, because that's really important so we can micro-target. And then because part of the affordable housing also is senior housing, when you're building senior affordable housing. And so we're really conscious about trying to build 55 and older senior affordable housing communities. And one thing that's been great about Palm Beach County, the housing authorities, they've been really innovative in terms of using the tax credit models to actually build affordable housing. Because before, you had a lot of the housing authorities, they were relying on HUD, the federal government, to fund housing. And so with lack of funding, the housings would never get renovated. And so now the city of Delray Beach, under leadership of Dorothy Ellington, like really changing Delray. West Palm Beach is like really at the forefront of like building cutting edge affordable housing and using the tax credits. And so what we're hoping is that continuing to work with the housing authorities, so in that way we can build the extremely low income. Because we have an item that's on the agenda tomorrow morning, and that's with the West Palm Beach Housing Authority, partnering with them, so in that way we're actually going to build an affordable housing, but that's going to target the extremely low income. Yes. I'm glad everybody saved the questions for me. And so, is it Charmaine? They won't even ask you any questions, so they're going to. So the first question is the time frame. So if the voters vote on it November 8th, typically you have to do a bond validation hearing, which will probably be in March of 2023. And then so we're expecting sometimes in May that we would issue the first set of bonds. And so what we would do is we wouldn't do the full 200 million at one time. We probably would do 50 million at first, so in that way we can see how it is. And then we do have our department. All of the funds will be controlled by the Department of Housing and Economic Sustainability. That's under Jonathan Brown's department, and so that's the county under the leadership of Virginia Baker. So you've got county monitoring those funds. The second question was, if it doesn't pass, we're at church, so we have an awesome God, so I cannot answer that question. So I believe that it will pass, because the good people of Palm Beach County, when we have a crisis, we always step up to help our fellow residents. And the benefit, is that the last part? If you can repeat that just to make sure? Okay, so essential workers. So what we've done is mostly, it's really more focused on the income level of the residents. So in that way, so we figure that you're going to have your people who work in Palm Beach County who builds Palm Beach County. So we didn't try to create a definition so in that way to limit who can benefit from this. Yes. Kitty is like, so she's gonna get you now. You can ask the question, but you know who it is. Okay. But remember, this is a housing plan that we've created that's got 4 components. So whether it passes or not, we still have to implement the full plan. And so we would look at what else can we do, what other tools that we can use to address the housing needs of Palm Beach County. All right?
Mac Bernard, did you just say you'll stay for an hour for further questions if they need it? Okay, thank you. Thank you for your transparency in regards to this bill. So our next presenter, because we're running out of time, is Charmaine Postal. She's an entrepreneur, advocate, and a change agent who was born, raised, and resides in Palm Beach County. She is the president and founder of Bold Foundation, Building Opportunities for Leaders Daily. She currently serves on the Florida Parent-Teacher Association as a vice president of membership development, student engagement, chair for Palm Beach PTA, PTSA, and the governance member of National PTA Family Engagement Committee. Please welcome Charmaine Postal.
Our schools rank among the best.
The One Meal Plan ensures funding for students to thrive and improves teacher pay.
We kept 750 career arts and choice teachers.
Enhanced security measures to keep our children safe.
And provided mental health support for students.
The One Meal Plan keeps all this for our kids and their future. Strong schools, strong communities.
Look for the continuation of the One Meal Plan on your ballot. For information only, sponsored by the Palm Beach County School District.
So good evening, everyone. I will be respectful of your time and will not keep you long at all. So tonight we heard about community, we heard about businesses, we heard about education, and we also heard about housing. So I'm a firm believer of better education, better communities, better businesses. So the official ballot language, tonight we'll talk about the school referendum, right? Strong schools, strong communities. The official ballot language says, School District of Palm Beach County, Florida referendum, election November 8, 2022, referendum to continue Valorum levy for school safety, teachers, and operational needs. Should a Palm Beach County School Board have continued authority to levy 1 mills of ad valorem millage for operation needs of public schools dedicated to funding school safety, school police, mental health services, arts, music, physical education, career, and choice program teachers, and improve teacher pay beginning July 1st, 2023, and automatically ending June 30th, 2027, with oversight of all funds by an independent committee of citizens experts. So, Madam Moderator shared various titles that I wear and hats that I wear, but the main title that I come before you is as a parent of 4. And so my answer is yes to this referendum, because I could say that if there was someone from the district before you, they wouldn't be able to share that, right? So I say yes. The answer is yes. Why is this referendum important? This referendum first is important because it supports enhanced school safety, support student mental health, improve teacher pay, keep arts and music education. Raise your hands if you knew about what this or if you know about this referendum prior to the video or coming here today. So there's a few hands, but this referendum impacts everyone in this room. So everyone in this room should know about this referendum, right? Couple of questions, frequently asked questions when we visit different areas about the referendum. Is this a new referendum? No, it is not a new referendum. This referendum is the continuation of the 1 million approved by the voters back in November of 2018. What is the cost of the referendum? Again, a home assessed at $225,000. I got to do the numbers like Commissioner Bernard. A home assessed at $225,000 with a taxable value of $200,000 after $25,000 school tax homestead exemption costs $200 per year, which equates to about $16.67 per month. Y'all do the math, and about 56 cents per day. Where will the revenue be spent? Well, $54 million and over 750 art, music, PE, choice, and career education, over $110 million in supporting and improving our teachers' pay, over $20 million respectively in continuing arts and education and music and education, as well as supporting more than ever the additional mental health support that we need in our school systems. So for the teachers, the question is, how much will teachers continue to receive? So district-operated initiatives totally approximate about $200 million and includes 50% on over 12,000 teacher recruitment and retention supplements. Current referendum provides an annual retention supplement based on years of experience, with 1,000 with 1 to 4 years, 5,000 with 5 to 9 years, and 10,000 with 10 years. Another question that we hear, so that hat with the PTA. The mission of the PTA is making every child's potential a reality by engaging and empowering families and the community to advocate for all children. All children means all children. And so when we talk about all children, that's the homeless, that's the group home children, that's the charter school, that's the private school, that's all children, because we never know when that child from a private school is coming to our public school, or that child from the charter school is respectively coming to our public schools. So does this referendum include charter schools? The answer is yes. And that is pursuant to Florida Statute 1011.719, school operational purposes includes charter school. So there's some rumors here and there about charter schools. The answer is yes. Charter schools will be held to the same accountability and same requirements as district-operated schools with respect to this referendum. Charter schools may only use the funds in items included in the ballot language that I spoke before, and charter schools are subject to the same referendum oversight committee as district-operated schools. So currently, the district have a few oversight committees that meet every month, and they're open to the public. The minutes are also available on the district board docs, which is a Independent Sales Surtax Oversight Committee, ISSOC. I know it by the acronyms, and I'm trying to remember the actual committee's name, right? So again, the district meets, and two important things before I end tonight, because I said I was gonna wrap it up quickly, right? How does this referendum differ from the penny sales tax? That's a big confusion. This referendum is not the penny sales tax. The penny sales tax is the money that was received by voters back in November of 2016 for local government infrastructures. So that's the capital needs of the school districts. The referendum is specifically to the language that's on this ballot for these 4 items that's on here. That's the difference. What happens if the referendum does not pass? I'm a believer. I believe it's going to pass as well, Commissioner. But should it not pass, what happens? Everything that is on that ballot is at risk. And so you ask yourself, do my kids need school safety? Do my kids need additional support in mental health? Do our schools need this? Not do my kid. Do our schools need this, right? Do our teachers need to be paid more? And do we keep arts and music and education? One of the biggest things that we have to remember and realize is, if this referendum does not pass, the district have to in turn prioritize what they will keep for our children. And those things that they will keep, with the exception of the state legislative mandated, PE education, with the mandated mental health, with the mandated security, which is just a minimum of what our students need. If this referendum does not pass, they have to prioritize. What do you think will go first? So a yes vote for this referendum. And so just thank you for your time, and if there's any questions, I'll take them now. Did I do good? You have a question in the back. Yes. With respect to this referendum, first, let me be very honest with you. I can't answer your question in totality, so I will get that question to you and return that back to you. But with respect to this referendum, to continue to fund the additional school police, not the support, because the sheriff is temporarily at this time. They're not, permanent. The sheriff is assisting with the vacancies that the school district currently are experiencing with shortage of police staff. So that's number one. Number two, this particular referendum supports the equipment and security for the secondary level. So that's your high school, middle school, and high school levels. As far as the rate goes, we're gonna leave it at that. We could talk later after that, because I don't want to be wrong in front of the cameras. Yes. Are there any questions for Charmaine at this time? Because I know the organizers, I want to be respectful of everyone's time. No additional questions? Thank you so much for your time, and I'll be back in the back. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I think we should continue to have these forums in church, because everybody's like, I can't answer that question. I want to be honest. Help me, Lord. Keep me honest in here. Really. So before we end tonight, I just want to thank everyone for coming. I just have a few tips that I want to leave people with. Early voting starts Monday, October 24th, till Sunday, November 6th. There are 21 early voting sites, so you can also visit votepalmbeach.gov. That's votepalmbeach.gov for additional information. Election day is Tuesday, November 8th. Return vote by mail ballots at early voting locations during early voting phase. Ballots can be also returned to the supervisor of elections until Elections Day. If you go into any of the early voting sites, all you need is your photo ID. Encourage others to vote if they have questions. Next week, check out the West Palm Beach Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta's website and social media pages for details for Take Your Child to Vote Day. The Deltas are offering prizes to participants in their social media contests. And again, we want to thank the Delta Sigma Theta and the historic Tabernacle Baptist Church for this evening's workshop. And just really quick, when you think about people that are on the ballot, do they share your common interests? Do they communicate well? Are they prepared for the positions by experience or training? Do they know the issues and understand the impact of their decisions on their voters? Are they honorable? Are they accessible to their constituents? And do they have the skills that leaders need? And if you have questions, just ask people, please. All right, I want to thank everyone for joining us tonight, and have a great night and be safe. Thank you.